About 6 or 7 months ago, I parked up on this very beach, just over there in fact, and I filmed my second ever video, which was a full review of my Dune rooftop tent. That video has gone on to get a fair bit of attention, and I've been contacted by a lot of people asking more questions about the tent and wondering if my initial thoughts on the tent are still the same today. So welcome everybody to part 2 of the Dune rooftop tent review, the bits I missed. What's up guys? I hope everyone's New Year's off to a good start. Before we get cracking, I do want to mention that I'm not going to be covering anything in this video that I covered in the first video. So if you haven't seen the first one, maybe go and check that one out first and then come back to this one afterwards. So the first thing I want to talk about is mounting. I had a lot of questions from people asking how the tent mounts, if you need 3 roof racks like I've got here, and so on. So basically the tent's designed to mount across 2 roof racks, and you've got 2 adjustable rails underneath that you can slide forwards and backwards to line up perfectly with your particular roof rack system. Once in place, you slide the mounting bolts into those adjustable rails and attach the tent to the roof racks using the brackets provided. So what I've done for my 3 rack system is move those adjustable rails as far towards the front as possible, and then I've secured them using the brackets provided to these front 2 rails. The rear of the tent just rests firmly on my 3rd roof rack as a bit of additional support. All in all, it's a pretty universal mounting system that should work with most roof rack systems. The only thing I do from time to time is just get underneath and make sure those mounting bolts are still nice and tight. Next, let's talk about wind resistance, because it's such an important component of any tent, be it a rooftop tent like this or even a ground tent as well. And for me, this comes in 2 main forms. The first is how much wind can the actual structure of the tent withstand before it starts getting warped out of shape or damaged. In that particular department, the Dune rooftop tent performs extremely well. I put it through some pretty intense weather conditions, pun possibly intended, and it's never given me any cause for concern whatsoever regarding the structural integrity of the tent. So big tick there. The second factor for me is how much noise the tent makes during those windy nights. And being a soft cover tent with lots of areas of material, this does make a fair bit of racket during windy nights. Now everyone's different. For me personally, that's not a huge concern because I could probably sleep through an apocalypse when I'm out camping, but it has kept Bianca awake in the past. So what I do now, if we're camping together and I know it's going to be a windy night, I'll take a tie down strap like this, hook it onto the outermost point of the awning, there's a bit of an exposed beam there, and run that down to the ground and put a bit of tension on that strap. Being careful obviously not to put too much tension because you don't want to damage the hydraulic struts, but just a little bit is enough to keep that fabric nice and tight and stop a majority of those flapping noises. Some people have asked if you need to weather these tents prior to use, which is something you have to do for most swags and some tents as well. I wish I could find my original Dune instructions to find out what the official statement is, but all I can tell you is that I didn't weather this one bit at all before use, and it's been completely waterproof. We've had it through some really intense rainstorms in the past, and not one bit of water has ever come through. Is condensation build-up on cold nights camping a problem? Sure is, but I don't think I've ever seen a tent that doesn't suffer from this problem. To try and help combat this a little bit, the Dune tent does have a couple of vents built in. First and foremost, there's a big vent right up on the roof there, and there's also 2 vents on the front of the tent. And having all of those open does make a big difference for condensation. The next thing I want to address is a bit of wear and tear I've been experiencing on the door here, and that's to do with how the tent folds away. So I'll pull it down now and I'll show you what I mean. Now you'll have to excuse my selfie mode filming. I don't have a 4-meter tripod to get up to the roof here. But basically what's happening is that you're supposed to fold these tents away with the door flat across the top, and then you just lay the ladder on top and chuck the cover over that. But what I found was happening is that when you're driving along with this ladder sitting on top of the fly screen, it's obviously moving around, and I found that it was actually wearing through the fly screen at certain areas. So the only solution I've really found to this, other than obviously storing the ladder somewhere else, is to take the fly screen section and basically fold it underneath the non-fly screen section obviously doing a much neater job than I am with one hand. Once you're done and all the fly screen's hidden, you can basically store your ladder in its usual position, and now it's not going to be wearing through that fly screen anymore. Obviously not ideal because now the ladder's actually sitting on your bedding underneath here. Not a huge concern for me because it's just a sleeping bag and I can dust the sand off that. But if your bedding's a bit more vulnerable, you might want to lay down a mat or something on top and then chuck the ladder on top of that. I also get asked a fair bit about this cover and how well it keeps dust and rain out while you're driving along. In the past 18 months or so, we've never had any noticeable amount of dust or water get in through the cover, so that's good news. Granted, we haven't tested it out properly at like the proper red dust up north just yet, so that may be a completely different story, but so far with all the trips that we've done with it, we've never had any problems whatsoever. And I'm actually really happy with the overall quality and I guess durability of the cover as well. I wasn't sure how it was going to fare against like stick scraping it on those tight four-wheel drive tracks, but so far so good. No stick has ever pierced it or even really left a mark on it, so we're pretty happy with that as well. Something else I get asked is if you can store stuff on top of the tent while you go away. Now, I'm not sure what Dune themselves would recommend, so take this with a pinch of salt, but in the past I have stored stuff up there, strapped it down around the roof rails when I've gone away. Mainly my kayak when I'm going camping somewhere near the water. And in the handful of times that I've done that, I haven't noticed any wear and tear or damage on the tent whatsoever. Well guys, that brings us to the end of part 2 of my Dune rooftop tent review. I'm still absolutely loving the tent and I still think it's the best option on the market within its price range. Hopefully by now with those 2 videos I've answered all the questions you might have about the tent, but if not, feel free to chuck them down in the comments down below. I'll get back to you, and if we get enough I might have to make a part 3. As always, thanks so much for watching and I'll catch you in the next one. You guys are still here, just watching me eat chips and drink water. We're all done, guys. We're finished. I'll catch you in the next episode.